Now, are you trying to shallow the shaft in transition in the downswing just like this here? But no matter how many drills you do, you just cannot get that feel and you always result in that shaft staying steep. Well, in this video, I'm going to show you 3 reasons to why you're struggling to shallow that shaft in transition, and of course, a fix for all those reasons too. So I'm Jonathan Chown with JChownGolf. Let's dive right into it. Now let's jump straight into the first reason here of why you struggle to shallow that shaft in transition. And that is you have too much cupping, or in other words, extension in that lead wrist in the downswing here. Now let me show you. So when I get up to the top of my backswing, let's say for example here, I have a flat left wrist at the top. Now, watch what happens when I try to extend and cup this lead wrist here. See how that shaft is naturally going to get quite steep, so the opposite of shallow. So I could be a golfer doing this. I could have a flat left wrist at the top of my backswing and then increasing the cup. I see this a lot in lessons, massive fault, very common. Or I could be a golfer who has a cup left wrist throughout their backswing and maintains it in the downswing. From there, it's going to get really tough to be able to shallow the shaft. You can still shallow the shaft from there, but you'd have to do a lot. It would take a lot of work to shallow the shaft from that. So really from here, we need to make sure we're having to make shallowing easier for us, a more appropriate wrist angle in transition and in the downswing as well here. So let's say I have a flat left wrist. Now I move down to the downswing and I keep that left wrist flat. You're going to see how the shaft stays pretty neutral in its shaft pitch here. It doesn't really shallow massively, but it also doesn't steepen. But let's say, for example, now I had a slight amount of bow in transition of that lead wrist there. So you can see how that, of course, is really going to shallow the club quite a lot there. So your wrist angle plays a massive role in what that shaft pitch does. And having the appropriate wrist angle makes shallowing it far easier. Now, a really good drill here that is going to get you to having that flatter wrist in transition there. And all you need is a glove and you need a tee. Now, what we do, we place that tee on the front side of the glove. We put it about 3/4 of the way in. It could be either side or either end of the tee there. Now, we have feedback to what our wrist angle is doing. So like we said, we want to, for doing this anyway, avoiding a cupped lead wrist. So if I start to try to cup that lead wrist now with that tee in the front side of my glove there, it's going to stab in to my forearm. So I'm going to get really good feedback in a pain response here. So if I don't want to feel pain, I don't want to feel that tee jabbing into my forearm, I have got to keep that tee flatter. So I could even extreme it here by trying to even separate the tee. Because if I separate the tee from my forearm, as you can see here, that lead wrist is actually going to start slightly bow there. So from there, that's definitely going to have a good effect on the shaft. So if that tee isn't jabbing into us, that shaft is not going to steepen. You're going to have a much better chance to shallow it. So you can even feel, like we said, separating or just preventing the tee from jabbing you. So let's hit a shot here and we'll put it on slow-mo and you're going to see it's going to be a much better shaft movement in the downswing. So the second reason to why you struggle to shallow that shaft in transition is all about the trail elbow. So for me as a right-handed golfer, my right elbow. So let's say, get up to the top of the backswing. Let's say I have an okay structure of my right arm here. It's fairly close to my right side. Now in transition here, I'm going to do this. I'm going to point my elbow behind me here. So my elbow, my right elbow, is now pointing behind my body in that first movement. You can see the shaft is going to immediately stand up and get steep. So even if I just do it with one arm here, you're going to see elbow pointing behind me, shaft's going to steepen here. So your trail elbow plays a massive role on what your shaft is doing again in the downswing. So as soon as, again, we say point behind us, shaft will steepen. So what happens when we do the opposite? When we get that elbow pointing in front of us, you're going to see the shaft starts to shallow out quite a bit. So me moving in the downswing here, let's move that arm in front of me. So I'm ultimately here getting my right elbow and it's getting closer to my left elbow in a downswing. That's a really good feel for this. But you can see straight away, guys, that starts to shallow the club. And again, just like the lead wrist there, really common. It's normally both of these, which is really stopping a player from getting shallow there. So again, let's get a drill to sort this out. And there is a brilliant drill to do with this. All you need is a medium-sized ball like this. So I've got that pink spiky ball that quite a lot of you have commented about on previous videos. That's just lying in the background there. And I use this to really work on your trail arm mechanics in there. So ultimately, how that elbow is moving in the downswing, because we can either have this, we can have a little training aid like that there, little ball, Tour Striker Smart Ball will do quite fine as well. All we do, this is slightly deflated as you can see, it's not having the best of times. All we need to do is put this ball just underneath our elbows here. So when we put that ball just underneath our elbows, it's going to give us brilliant feedback. So if I get up to the top of the backswing here, and instead of getting my trail arm closer, my elbow closer to my left arm there, to where you can see shallow to shaft, but if I do a paw move, look what's going to happen where I get that elbow pointed behind me. It's going to fall down to the ground every single time. So it's going to give me amazing feedback, and the feedback I want, because if we're using a ball like this on the driving range, we don't want that ball to drop out, because that ball, one, might fly down the driving range, two, might trip someone up walking behind us, walking to their bay to hit some balls. So we want to, as we're going up to the top of the swing, moving in transition, we want to feel like, oh, almost dropped it there, that we're squeezing that ball into our left arm with our right elbow. I've got to readjust it there from almost dropping it. But again, if that separates and those two elbows get further away, it's going to drop. So all we need to do here, we just need to hit a few shots, starting small first, really making sure we're feeling that right elbow get closer to the left. We can almost feel like we're squeezing that ball in between our arms in transition there and through the downswing. Because you can see as soon as I do that through the downswing, I'm going to be shallowing that shaft quite nicely here. So let me do a few here. It'll probably help as well if the ball wasn't as deflated as this one, but I feel like this does a good job at it. So you can see just a small little one there, just to start off with. And when we get more comfortable, we can build that swing length up there. So let's put a slow-mo onto this one. When we build it up, and we're going to see quite a nice little shallowing move start to happen. Now the third reason here to why you're struggling and why you can't shallow that club in transition, and this is one that you would definitely have not seen any videos about in the past. Now that's because this is a very overlooked part, but it has a massive role on what that shaft does in transition again. And that is, as you get up to the top of the backswing, you have lost your shoulder tilt as you get up to the top of your swing. So your left side, instead of being tilted down towards the ground, it has instead raised up here. That left shoulder's raised up, it's flattened. And then your first move in the downswing is regaining that tilt. So getting your left side or your lead side, so it's pointing back down again, regaining that tilt you've lost. You can see how that shaft will immediately steepen as soon as I've done this. Now again, this is a common reason as well, but this is very overlooked quite a lot of the times. But you can see here, it's almost a backswing issue, then how it leads into a downswing issue. So this is multiple problems that are going to be happening with your golf swing if you do this. Now, when we lose our tilt at the top of the backswing, the left shoulder raises up, it's a natural thing for us to do is to regain that tilt, because the ball's on the ground. I have to stay tilted towards that golf ball to be able to hit the ball on the ground. So I would have to do that move. I'd have to regain my tilt, left shoulder will have to drop again. It's just that shaft will start to steepen. So our fix here hasn't got anything to do with the downswing. Our fix here is to keep our shoulder tilt, our left side staying low through that backswing and to the top of the swing there. Now our body won't do a subconscious regain of tilt, which steepens the shaft. Now my body can just continue to turn through, shift, do all the nice things, and that club, if we've got the other variables in place that we've just talked about, the club will shallow quite nicely there. So a good drill to do to get rid of the loss and the regain of tilt. Again, a very, very simple drill, but this drill is without a golf ball. Whenever we work on shoulder tilt, it's actually quite difficult to be able to work on that with a ball, but you can do some brilliant work without it at home as well. So let me use my net here. So with my net, you can imagine this is just a wall in front of me. What I want to do, I want to stand to this wall to where I've got, let's say, about half a club's distance away from the wall here. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to grip my club and I'm going to put it roughly across my shoulders. I'm putting it a little bit lower than my shoulders because of my microphone. And I want to get in golf posture here, just like I'm gripping a club. Now, I want to work on my backswing tilt here. So if I'm going up to the top of my swing and I lose my tilt, you're going to see how straight away I'm going to hit that wall. Oh no, I'm going to hit the wall. So it's going to be perfect feedback. So I want to turn to the top of my swing and prevent this butt end of the club from hitting that wall. If I'm doing that, I will be successfully keeping my shoulder tilt. So if we do enough of this here, guys, we're really going to be making sure that we're staying in good tilt in the backswing, so then we won't have to regain it in the downswing as well. And for good measure, we can do a movement through as well to make sure we're staying in the shot as well there. So getting a lot of reps in there for sure. So if you're doing this, like let's say on the driving range, you could do this in between like a bay divider, for example. You could do a good few reps of that. You could even do it over the golf ball here, just making sure that butt end of the club's pointing at the ball. And then after you've done that a good few times, replicate it with some backswing feels without a golf ball, really feeling that left side staying lower, and then hit a few shots, replicating that exact same feel. And with enough repetition there, you're going to be able to really get rid of this problem here. So let's do one more of a slow-mo, and you're going to see quite a nice shaft angle, and just generally the swing working okay through there. Just keeping my left side low through the backswing. It's going to stay lower in the downswing. So guys, with those three things there, you know, the lead wrist angle, making sure it's not too cupped in the downswing, making sure your trail elbow is getting in front of your body, not falling behind you, and two, making sure your tilt is nice in the backswing. So then let's say if you did lose the tilt, you don't have to regain it again, steepening that shaft, preventing you from shallowing the shaft there. If you're doing all those three quite well, then you could be able to do these good drills to be able to shallow the shaft, and you'll get there quite nicely after that. We need to get rid of the reason that's blocking us from doing that movement by making our, what these are called, our variables in our golf swing, quite nice and tight in there, so they're nice and solid. So if you enjoyed this video, make sure you click that like button, and if you want more golf instruction just like this, hit that subscribe button and hit the bell button too to be notified every time I put out a video. So like we said, make sure these are in place and you're not going to struggle to shallow the shaft.